Hey guys, Christy from Shark Pixel here, and for this video, I just want to extrapolate a little bit more on how exactly I got this shot, because I did use long exposure photography to create this image, but I also paired that with another skill of creating high dynamic range images to create this shot. So what I want to show you is how to quickly merge an image in Lightroom itself to create a shot with a much wider dynamic range. So here you can see my final shot. But then to get that shot, I've got my underexposed image where I see all of the detail in the highlights of the sky here. I've got my medium exposed image where I have the detail in the midtones of the image. And then I have my overexposed image where I have detail in those shadow areas from this shot. So what I'm going to do is use a new feature in Lightroom 6 and Lightroom CC, depending on which one you're using. And I'm going to choose all three of these images. And I'm going to come up to the photo drop-down menu and choose Photo Merge HDR. What Lightroom is going to do here is it's going to give me a preview of what that HDR image might look like. And this is the great thing about Lightroom CC and Lightroom 6, is that you can do HDR images without having to take them into Photoshop at all. Okay, so here's the preview image that Lightroom has given us to show us what our HDR image is going to look like. I think that looks great, so let's go ahead and move on and choose Merge down here at the bottom of this screen. As you can see up here, Lightroom is now creating the HDR image for you. Okay, excellent. So here is our final HDR image. If you come over here and look at the exposure tab, you can see that you can pull this exposure all the way up 10 stops overexposed or 10 stops underexposed. This is really, really interesting, and it gives you a lot more lateral movement within the exposure range. If I come back to one of my regular exposed images and pull my exposure slider up all the way, you can see that I'm capped at only +5 for exposure or -5 for exposure. So you can see how creating that high dynamic range image, this one here, allows you a lot more lateral movement. So now that we've got this, I want to pop over into Photoshop and show you some of the selective tweaks that I made to the shot. Okay, here we are. Here's our high dynamic range image, and I wasn't quite happy with the way the water looks in this image. So what I did was I brought in an exposure which took a little bit more time and really gives that glassy look to the water there. And as you can see, if I come over here, I hold down my Option or Alt key and click on the mask itself, you can see what my mask looks like for that area. So that looks great. It's a wonderful start. I just cleaned up some of the small little dust spots on my lens. And then I got a little bit more creative. I really wanted to push myself in this. So I used a hue saturation layer on multiply blend mode to darken that sky and really make it dramatic and gloomy. And then I added some color treatments to that sky as well to make it look really nice. My next step was just to darken those trees to give a little bit more contrast to them. And then I felt like this image just wasn't giving me that it factor that I wanted. And so I thought about possibly giving the illusion to the foreground of lighting it with a like tungsten style light. And so I created a mask for this area here, down here in the foreground, and then my tall wooden structure here. I'm not a boat person, so I don't know what the actual name is for that. And I went ahead and used a hue saturation layer. I colorized it and then I gave it a warmer hue. And then I just colorized those areas to give a complementary color to that background and that water and sky because it was so monochromatic. Lastly, I just did a little bit more cleanup, and then I added a little bit of dodging and burning and contrast to this image. And that's how I got it. In closing, I hope that what you grasp from this short video is that use Photoshop and Lightroom to your advantage when you're traveling to really recreate that image that you're actually seeing at the time when you take the shot, and really make your images sing and look beautiful after the fact. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.